Hi, it's Matt here with the ASM Hydrasynth. We're going to get hands on it now and see what is going on. Over the course of this tutorial, we'll get inside the machine and understand what's going on underneath each button. But for starters, we're just going to work across the front panel and get a sense of what this synth is. First thing is, it's an 8-voice polyphonic polysynth. Now, if you're from a software synth background, you might be kind of stunned at the idea of polyphony being something which has a limit. But yeah, in hardware it does. This guy will knock out 8 voices. If you buy more of them, you can chain them together and control them from a single surface. But nonetheless, it's not unlimited. Its sound generation system is a thing called wavetable synthesis. This dates back to the 1980s, but it's seen a big revival recently in things like Anna 2, Serum, etc. These wavetables are a series of waveforms that we can scroll between or fade between rather than just being a static saw, square, sine, whatever. We can pick between not only those waveforms but other more complicated ones. That all gets fed into what's called a subtractive synthesis engine, i.e. filters, which we've encountered, I'm sure, on numerous other synths before, and then we get sent off into effects to wrap things up. It's a very fully spec'd synth. It has 3 oscillators, which are then fed into 4 things called mutants, and we'll come back to those in a sec. The mutant outputs are then fed into the filters, and the filters, the mutants, the oscillators can all be modulated by any of 5 envelopes or 5 LFOs. So that's the basic idea of what's going on inside the synth. But as I say, we're going to start looking at the outside. So what have we got? Starting at the left, master volume. Who can decipher this strange hieroglyphic? What could they mean? Let's turn it and find out. My goodness, it turns the volume down. Yep, we have a master volume switch over here. If all else fails, turn that down. The reason I mention if all else fails, occasionally the Hydrasynth can produce astonishingly loud levels you weren't expecting. Keep your hand handy. If that's not working for you and you can't get there quick enough, we have a shift panic. This shift key accesses anywhere you see orange writing below a button other than the writing on the button. The orange writing is accessed by holding down shift. Okay, so if I'm making a sound and it goes crazy, if I do shift panic, everything is killed. So we'll start with those, master volume, shift panic. If noises get out of hand, they're your way out. Moving across, we have a CV gate area. This is a digital synth. It speaks MIDI, speaks it via USB, or it even speaks MPE, the multi-channel polyphonic new version of MIDI. So it's very nicely equipped for the modern days, but also speaks fluent old. Here, it can send old in through those, and it can send old out through all those 5 there. So this means you can route the outputs of things from your modular synth into the ASM to modulate parameters within it, or you can modulate aspects of your modular gear with modulators such as the envelopes, the LFOs, etc. from the ASM outwards. Really quite lovely to have that option. Moving down from the CV gate area, we have an arpeggiator. This, as you imagine, is an arpeggiator. It's quite a fully featured one, a bunch of functions there. We'll look at those properly when we look at the arpeggiator, but this whole part of the front panel is just dedicated to the arpeggiator. Moving on from CV gate arpeggiator, we've got an area called main systems. And in main systems, we can set by using the system setup button how the synth globally is responding to things like MIDI, pressure, all kinds of stuff. There's about 12 pages. We'll go through those. And it also is a place which allows us to browse through sounds. Now we can do this just one by one through the bank. There we go. Yeah, on we go. Okay, or we can press this rather nice browse button, browse. And then over here, we have this display area has now switched to tell us about the patches. And the key one is here, it says find by patch number, which is how we're currently working. So when we turn the main browse wheel, we're going through by number, yeah? But if I change that to say find by name, we're going to go through alphabetically. So we're currently on suppressive, and we're going to go to suppressive and scale and scaly. So you can see these are leaping all over the place in terms of numbering, but they're going through alphabetically. Similarly, we can change it to find by category. So currently we're on keys, it will move through nothing but keys sounds. If I change it to FX, go through nothing but FX sounds. You see, so it's a nice multi sort of menu way of getting through the different sounds contained in the ASM. So I'll scroll us back down to where we were. Now, if at any point you find yourself scrolling like this for ages or turning one of these knobs for ages, you can press Shift and turn at the same time and it'll go quicker. Okay? So these are the kind of the getting round the synth area here. You've also got arrows for jumping up and down individually, or you can hold shift and go up and down in tens. So, it's got lots of nice UI stuff going on here. At any point, you can press home and you come back to this screen. It tells you the name of the patch, and it brings you back to what's called the macro control readout here. So we'll look at this next. Master control, this section is called. Now, obviously, there's a lot more parameters and a lot more stuff inside the Hydrasynth than we could ever get dedicated knobs for all over the front panel. It would need to be the size of about 3 living rooms. That can't happen. So what ASM have done is made a compromise. Here we've got 8 dedicated knobs and 8 dedicated buttons, and they can be assigned to anything you want to. And once you've assigned them, they can be assigned not just to one destination, they can be assigned to like 5 or 6. Say, for example, you want to brighten up the sound whilst also overdriving the distortion in the effects section and ever so slightly increasing the volume. You could do all that on just one of these. That's done through a thing called the macro assign, and sometimes that's in conjunction with the mod matrix to allow you to hit more than one destination at once, both of which we'll look at shortly. So for taking this sound, for example, this saw oppressive, I can change that sound up here. I can change its waveform because I've dedicated one of these controls to the wave. You can hear me now stepping through one of those wavetables. I can also dial in noise. I can kill the reverb and the delay. Now that's just for this sound. Every one of these things is set up differently. So that's that suppressive preset. If I go on to this next guy, we'll see, here, now that first controller is doing ring mod. So you can set up 8 handy performance controls that change the sound in the way that you're most particularly interested in. And we also have these buttons, as I say. If I hit the button, it's jumping straight to a different wavetable point. So the buttons allow us to do a jumping value. We can sweep with these controllers, but with a button we can set to jump to a particular level. However, that can be set by you. So you've got the choice to switch things on or off. So if you were turning, say, an LFO on or off, that can be done with a button. If you want to sweep through values, that can be done with a knob. So you've got the hands-on controls to change these sounds a great deal. Now, these same controllers are how we access each area of the synth when we're editing it. So, for example, if I wanted to edit the oscillators, I come over to here where I've got module select, and I go, okay, I want to edit oscillator 1. And this now changes. And it lets me control the mode of the oscillator, which waveform, the semitone of the oscillator, etc., etc. And if there's more controls than will fit in a single window, I can page up and down with these 2 page buttons. And as I do, you can see the parameters, these nice light up LED rings, show us what things are set to. So it's a really good compromise between filling a house with knobs, insert your own favourite Parliament MP joke there, or having a front panel you can actually fit on a desk. So, as I say, when we change to different modules, this section updates every time. You'll also notice if I jump to filter, that this rather nice readout here is showing us the filter curve graphically. And also when I'm playing stuff, it acts as an oscilloscope, showing us the current waveform. And that's not just like fancy graphics, it really updates in real time. If I filter that, then you'll see it smooth out. If you're working on LFOs or the filter, this little window will be giving you some visual impression of what's going on. You also have the parameters written up here and visually represented by these LED rings. So moving across, we have the cutoff, resonance, drive, morph. We have hands-on controls for the filter at all times. So although we can access the filters through here, we've actually got dedicated controls for them as well. Last of all is the module select area, and as I showed you earlier, this lets us choose which part of the synth we want to look at. Envelopes, 5 of them there, LFOs here, effects here, and then we can edit them from this section. So that's the top of the front panel. Now down here, we have one of the other things that's rather nice about the ASM. It's got this keyboard. As you can hear, it's pressure sensitive. If I put this sound back onto what it was before, so we can get a nice clear sound again, you'll hear it's not just pressure sensitive. Each note is individually pressure sensitive. Now this has been on the wish list of the world's keyboard players for absolutely years, since the Yamaha CS80 back in the 70s, to get a nice, fully spec'd, brilliantly playable poly aftertouch synth. The other thing they've been after for a while is this little boring, unobtrusive little black thing here. That's a ribbon controller. Now these are the two aspects of the CS80. Poly aftertouch. And a ribbon controller. That people have been absolutely crying out for. Now yes, we've now got things like the Rolly, etc., which have come along and given us these MPE controllers. But this is a standard classic keyboard. There's no relearning your technique. There's no change in playability. It's a keyboard like every other synth you own. It has also got poly aftertouch. It has also got ribbon controller. That's rather groovy. And last of all, not to be overshone, we have, of course, pitch bend, modulation. And they're lit up, which is always nice, in the same color as we have here. And these colors change from patch to patch, as you'll see. So again, you have another visual thing going on with lighting. When you're changing patches, you could set up all your pads as white, or your basses as blue, for example. It's a very visual thing. And we have other lighting tricks as well, which mean more than just eye candy. Over here in the LFOs, you can see they're glowing up and down. That's showing you the speed those LFOs are oscillating at. If we take LFO 3, you can see it's pulsing 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. If I slow that down, when I come back out again, watch LFO 3, it's now pulsing much slower. So at a glance, you know what's going on with your LFOs. Similarly with the envelopes, when I press a key and trigger those envelopes, you can watch some of those will light up and brighten and dim, showing the progression of that envelope. Now there's obviously quite a lot of sustain on those guys, but if I was to set one to fade down to a sustain of 0, we'll see that will brighten up and then fade off. Envelope 2, let's exit course. And there you go, envelope 2 is now faded to black and the sound is faded away. So that's a very quick run through the front panel of the ASM. Next, we're going to get our hands dirty.
Thanks everyone for watching. We really appreciate all the support from you guys. If you love this video, then smash a like, and if you want to be notified about new videos, hit the subscribe and notification buttons. Peace!